Hello my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Egg Wars. Hope you're all doing well. I know I'm feeling pretty good myself, so I hope that you are feeling similarly. Before we get started today, oh my goodness, what is this? Yes, oh my goodness, it is a name brand, regular old, ultra, look at the texture, it's all there, sip. Now I know it's not that white sip that is the trademark hallmark of the sips, but you know, I love me the purple sip. If you've never had it, to me it's kind of very similar to like ooh, look at that fizz. I just pet my dog, so I don't want to. I usually lick it off my hand. No homo, but excuse me. Oh, that's good. It's good to step it up every now and then on a special occasion. Which this isn't really, but I just decided to do it anyway. Now, a couple things to say before we get into the topic at hand today. First off, people have been saying, they said, Eggman, we want you to do an Egg Wars where you're sipping on a little drink, you know, maybe even have a little intersperse, you know, the food videos are not quite as popular as the Egg War videos, but they still, people like, you know, just, you know, get a little, some kind of alcohol, some kind of liquor or something, have a little, you know, switch out the energy sip for a little sedative sip, you know, sedative sip, however you pronounce that, however you want to pronounce that. And so I'm hearing you guys, you know, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I want you guys to suggest, you know, obviously I've done things like the Hennessy Slam on my stream that one time. You know, I usually have kept a cold 40 on me, you dig, but I haven't been lately because there's a lot of calories in those bad boys and I don't really need that. So, but if you have any suggestions of a certain alcohol you would like to see me drink for an Egg Wars, please just do make a suggestion if you would like, and I will look into it, see if there's one that catches my eye in particular. I don't want to spend a ton of money. Some people have been like, you know, suggesting some scotch and stuff. I'm like, God, you know, I just really haven't been drinking much in the last couple weeks now since I've been kind of getting myself back on track. So I don't want to go out and buy like a $100 bottle of liquor. I'm looking for something that's maybe a little bit cheaper. I can maybe get like a, you know, 200 milliliter bottle or something like that of. So anyway, just leave a suggestion if you have something in mind. And also, I usually shout out my three amigos, you know, but today I'm going to switch it up a little bit. There's a guy who I've been subscribed to for a while, who I kind of like what he does, and he's been streaming a lot lately. He's kind of a cool artist sort of guy, and he goes by the name of the Not So Casanova. Maybe you've heard of him, but today I'm going to put a little spotlight on him because I see he's been putting in a lot of work lately, and you know, he's kind of a cool guy, so I want to give him a little bit of recognition. So his channel link will be in the description today. If you want to go check him out, he's a pretty cool dude, I think. So now today, what are we going to talk about? First thing before I get into the subject matter, this more than anything, but I also want to say, everything in the story that I'm about to tell you, it is a falsehood. It's fiction. It's not true. It never happened. It's totally just made up. And with that disclaimer out there, also do not try this at home. Anything you might hear in the story, do not try it at home, kids. It never happened. All right, now with that out of the way, with that disclaimer legally valid and in place here, I want to tell you guys about a couple times. Well, okay, a couple times isn't exactly accurate. Let me tell you guys about some things I had to do to make ends meet back when I was in college. So let's get into it now. When I was in college, 2012, it was a big year, 2012. It was the very first time I ever moved out of my parents' home. I moved out of my parents' house and I started living in a renting. I had a total, the place was awful. It was a piece of crap. It was way overpriced. What I didn't realize at the time, and what I've now come to realize, is in my hometown, the renting situation was always horrible. It was way overpriced for very, very low quality, and I never really understood, I guess, why at the time, because people would be like, I live in the city for this much a month, and da-da-da-da, how are you paying that much? You know, because I guess I was paying like, you know, 700 and some, or whatever, let's say it was like 700 a month, and it was very, very terrible conditions, and it's not good, and people are like, well, how are you paying that much? It's ridiculous. So what I came to realize is that because everywhere in my hometown, there's so much Section 8 housing and things like that, to where the property owners can drive the prices up, because for a lot of people it's just totally, as they say, comped by the government. So people didn't even have to pay, so the property owners were getting the maximum return, because they were just basically getting this government money, and so they were making so much money, but the people who had to actually pay were having to pay like a lot higher than what they should have because they weren't in the government programs to get the free shit. So I came to realize that eventually. But anyway, so I moved out in 2012, and I also in 2012 it was when I was browsing Fit a lot, and I was like, oh, I wanted to. I was trying to figure out, what I wanted to do with my life, and I'd been so into fitness at the time, obviously now, oh God, rest in peace, but at the time I was very into fitness and all that sort of thing, so that's when I was going to college to be a dietitian that year, and so I moved out, but I was living out of my parents' home, renting, plus I was working. Plus, I was taking a fair amount. I wasn't doing full-time school. I think I was doing, like, they called 3/4, so it was more than, like, a part-time student, but not quite as much as a full-time student. So there were a lot of days where I was, the time crunches were very, very strong sometimes. Like, there would be, I was missing sleep sometimes back then, too. That was before I ever worked my first double job scenario. That came after I was out of college, but when I was in college at the time, it was like I'd be working, because I gotta work, I gotta pay, I had bills to pay, so I had to be working, and then I'd get off work, and I'd be like, boom, gotta hit the books right away, boom, and shit, I was having trouble affording this stuff back then too, but I'll get into that. So it was just a lot of time crunches, a lot of just like craziness going on. I think because of this. Now, it's been a few years, so I can't remember all the exact circumstances surrounding it, but I do believe I had my work hours reduced a little bit because they realized I was so overburdened with life. I wasn't really saying a whole lot, but I had some days where I was like, I can't work this day because I got school, I can't work these hours because I got school. So they basically started kind of, fitting me wherever they were comfortable with, which was kind of limiting my employment hours a little bit. And so I don't remember the whole circumstances exactly that came down to it. All I do remember for sure is that at a point, basically once I had started school, like, my food budget was significantly decreased to the point where, I was trying to eat somewhat healthy anyway, so I was eating pretty cheap rice, beans, I was buying eggs by the dozen for a pretty reasonable price. I was not driving, so that helped with some expenses, but I was also having to take the bus to school, so then that was an expense, and if I felt like I had to go to the store and I was just too crunched, or I was too tired or whatever, I want to take the bus to the store, there were different, expenses that came with that. But for the most part, I was trying to be pretty on top of everything, but a lot of times it was just a lot of trouble going on. So I was working my gas station job at the time, at this gas station I was working at, and I kind of became privy to a little trick, and oh, wait, did I remind you that this story is totally fiction, by the way, for anybody who may be concerned? Anyway, I became privy to a little trick. It all started one day when a gentleman came in. He was purchasing some fuel, and I knew, it was a slow day or whatever, so basically I had his fuel rang up and everything, and the gentleman, I knew he was eligible for a fuel discount, so I had everything punched in, but he comes in, drops the exact change on the counter, and he's out within a minute. Now, this gas station, you worked one person at a time. There was no security cameras of any sort, because it was so out of date. Everything was so out of date. The place was a total dump. It was awful. It was a total piece of garbage establishment that has actually since been shut down, and rightfully so. But so the gentleman came in and he put the exact change down on the counter. But I'd already rang up his rightfully earned fuel discount, as I knew he was eligible for this fuel discount, which knocked off about $1 of his fuel. And I sat there to myself and I said, I might not have money to eat today, but if I press this button right here and I take this money into the register, there's going to be $1 left on this counter. Well, ain't that just the dickens? Well, I cashed it as such anyway, and I put the full amount of the currency into the till. And I thought to myself, I was like, this was the beginning of the cogs turning. Everything came to at that night, and I did my book work as I was required to do for my cash register and so on and so forth. And I happened to notice by the time I was done, you know, there was about $1.75 of additional, you know, between keeping the pennies from every such thing every so often and this fuel discount. I was like, gosh, you know, a couple cogs were turning. There was some action going on there, but I just, okay, we're up for the day. Boom, dropped it in the safe, and I went home about my business. But I continued to ponder for some time, thinking to myself, you know, I was always I had my streaks when I was younger of mischief, where, you know, we would occasionally cause havoc at occasional stores. I'm sorry, I've been told I say havoc incorrectly. Havoc when I was younger, when I was a teenager and a hellraiser and a troublemaker and so on and so forth. We had times where our fingers got a little sticky. An energy drink might go here or there. This and that might go here or there. And, you know, I'm someone of a conscience. You know, I'm not an unconscionable person. And I deeply regret those actions that I took as a young person. And, you know, for anybody who may have been affected by my reckless behavior at the time. But, you know, when I was coming back, and another thing I was doing at this time, outside of, you know, while I was working at the gas station, we were tasked with running a roller grill, for one. We also had baked goods that would be, you know, we'd have a baked good delivery every day that would come in, and we put it into a display case, and then, you know, the next day we'd get the new whatever in, and we'd move the top, whatever's left on top, down to the bottom row for a reduced price, and then at the end of that second day, whatever's on the bottom goes in the trash. And also, in 2012, because I worked at this job for longer than just this time frame, but in 2012, there was a special, extra new thing that the management of this place was trying, and that was putting out a hot pizza, which was a terrible, terrible idea. This was not a place anybody was ever going to come to for food. The cleanliness and everything was intentionally, the budget for that was non-existent. The care for maintaining it was even less existent. I was probably one of the very few people who actually did care and to do things like clean the roller grill and things like that. The other people were coming there for their minimum wage paycheck and basically sleeping through their whole shift because they're working by themselves, so nobody's going to say anything anyway. If the management says something, well, they can't hardly keep a person working there a week anyway, so it's like, it would usually come back on me to have to clean up the BS. So anyway, there was things going on of this nature: the pizza, the roller grill items, the baked goods. There was also a very, very nice gentleman who ran one of our potato chip displays. It wasn't a big brand potato chip, it was a smaller manufacturer, and if you would come in and there was potato chips of the sort, you know, that were going to be out of date, the protocol was to have them marked and discarded, but oftentimes it would be marked, and he would offer the product to us since it was going to be going in the trash anyway, which I often accepted. I think I probably got 30 bags of potato chips from that man free of charge. So that was quite nice, because they would last a while, and sometimes you got the different little smaller sizes, you know, of some different flavors. I was packing that shit in my lunch for school, you know, it was a pretty good arrangement. And then there was also, I'm trying to think, there was a couple other things. One being the milkman. We had a semi-local milk, you know, it wasn't the Kemp's milk, we didn't have that, it was a different brand of milk that was semi, you know, close-ish. It was at least stateside, you know, it wasn't from some random farm across the country. And so the man who was in charge of that would pull any milk that was near expiration, like a day or the day of or whatever it was, or the day before, whatever the case might be. And he would mark that for disposal as well. He would put it out into basically the store. He would take it out of the cooler and put it into the store area with, you know, a mark on it indicating it was to be dumped. As well as, sorry, I got a little something in my throat. My allergies have just been terrible lately. There would also be these sandwiches that would be marked every so often. Well, actually, that was actually our job to do. These sandwiches would come in, you know, your prepackaged plastic wrap gas station sandwiches, and if these were to not sell, then the day of, you know, the expiration date, they were to be tossed and marked down as such. Now, when I was working, I abided by absolutely none of the rules that were set in place in regards to all of these products, because like I said, we worked by ourselves and there were no security cameras. You could pretty much do anything you wanted. In fact, there was, I know for a fact that people who worked there prior to me had engaged in similar or perhaps even more severe illicit operations than that, than just what I was doing, which was, well, the pizza was a big one. The pizza, that when that started coming out, because we were doing $7 to $8 frozen pizza in this pizza oven and putting it out in a warmer, and I would have it out, you know, the management would want it to be out for like way beyond what it should have been. It was becoming like, I mean, totally dark brown and all this shit. They basically wanted it thrown in the warmer at noon and taken down at like 10 p.m., which absolutely was not going to fly with me. So I would always, we'd have it up there, and basically as soon as the opportunity would present itself, I would immediately turn the warmer off, take the pizza, and place it into the cooler in a bag of sorts, because then when I was done, you know, nobody ever once, ever in the, I can't remember how long we did this for, it was probably like 2 or 3 months, and the whole time, there was never a piece of pizza sold from that warmer, and thankfully so, because there probably would have been somebody getting very sick. It probably wasn't even up to any kind of regulation whatsoever. So that's probably good that nobody ever ate that garbage, but I would immediately take it and throw it in a bag, boom. You know, it would be 7, 8 o'clock at night, the old shriveled up hot dogs or whatever that people were, you know, nobody was ever going to buy that crap either. I was taking that, boom, 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 throwing it in one of those little cardboard trays, bada bing, bada boom. I'm tossing it in, you know, the milk that was supposed to get thrown out, I'm taking those gallons, I'm throwing them back in the cooler, everything's getting thrown back in the cooler. And that would be like one of the last things I would do before I would leave, because if you watched my first job Ask Eggy video from back in the day, you know, I would often stay longer than I was supposed to, because the work environment was so awful, and nobody would ever do anything, you know, so it'd be like, I would almost, you know, I would finish what I was doing, I would basically clock out, and then go back and kind of just like make sure everything was good, because like, there's otherwise no way it was going to even be good. So I mean, you could almost look at it this way, maybe I was getting my little, you know, off the books bonus for the work I was doing and not really being properly compensated for in the first place. But the true event in this storyline began that summer, the summer of 2012. Well, I'm trying to think. I believe it originally started that summer, and it went on for a little while. Can't remember. They ended up changing it eventually. But what was happening at this time was a local grocery store started running a promotion for actually a different gas station. But this, you know, we accept competitors' coupons. Yes, we do. At the crap station I was working at. So we had this this local grocery store. They had these tiered rewards. Depending on how large your grocery purchase was, you would receive a gas coupon for a certain amount, you know, and the largest of these being, I'm trying to think. I think the biggest one was 30 cents. Yeah, that sounds right. So there was these, if you purchased more than $100 of groceries from this store, you would receive a coupon that was 30 cents off your each gallon of gas, up to 30 gallons, I believe, was what it was. There was some, or maybe 40 gallons, something of that effect. Now, however, a couple things to note here. The crap station I was working at had a special promotion they would run to try and drum up business, which was doubling a fuel coupon on a certain day of the week. So if you came in on a certain day of the week with your fuel coupon, oh hey, you're here today, that's right, it's double up day, that's a 10-cent coupon, well you just got 20 cents off, bada bing, bada boom. Now also, the location between this grocery store and my terrible, awful gas station was only about a couple of blocks or so in between each other. So, you know, I had this original time that this situation happened where I'd given this man his fuel discount, but he never really, like, you know, he didn't really, he was just like boom and he was out the door. So the cogs were turning, and I realized, you know, as I was very down on my luck one day, I was very down, and I just, you know, I needed a new bus pass, you know, I needed bus fare, I needed, you know, there was different stuff I wanted to do this and that, and I needed just, you know, there was needs, and I just wasn't really getting to where I needed to be to fulfill those needs. So I happened to be at the grocery store picking up some rice and beans one day, and I noticed in the top of a nearby garbage can on the premises of this grocery store was a lowly 30-cent fuel coupon. Now, I would never have been able to afford one of these coupons on my own. But I noticed this, and I looked at it, and I was like, I wasn't even driving at the time, but the cogs were turning, as I said. And so I carried this with me, and I went to work on the next day, which turned out to be one of these double-up fuel discount days. And I was there, and it was nearly time for me to finish. It had been sort of a slow day, which was sort of disappointing, because, it was like, oh, it's double-up day, woo! But it wasn't very busy. And suddenly a man came in to the lot, and he began to prepay fuel at the pump with his credit card, and he was driving what appeared to be some sort of RV or something of the sort. Now, I'm trying to remember exactly how much fuel this man got. I could probably try and calculate the gallons by trying to somewhat remember. Let's see here. I think it was. I believe that's what it was. That's not right. Okay, whatever the case was, I don't know. I'm not going to do the math right now because apparently I'm really stupid right now, and also a lot of them. But this man fueled up to quite a large extent, and then immediately left the lot. And my cogs were turning, as I said. And so, I just decided, you know what? I printed out this man's fuel receipt. And I stapled my special 30-cent coupon I'd found in this garbage can to his fuel receipt. And I set it amongst my fuel coupons. And I punched in the calculations, and roughly $13 and some change was the amount this man was receiving for a fuel discount. But gosh, you know what? He just never came in or asked, but I tried to provide it for him, and I just didn't really want my cash register to be $13 and some change over, because that would have probably just looked really bad, so I just took that money and I set it aside. And as they say, what's the saying, basically, once you do something once, you kind of get used to it. And so for some significant amount of time afterwards, I worked at this place for a decent amount of time following this situation. This was basically, it really just had to do with these specifically large fuel coupons, because, a 3-cent fuel coupon coming around here or there wasn't going to be a whole lot. So I found myself to be digging through various receipts in various trash receptacles, and usually in a week I could find maybe 5 or 6 different of these particular very, very cherished coupons from a $100 plus grocery purchase, which would then double on the special double-up days to be 60 cents off per gallon of fuel. And then what I just happen to have a tendency to do would be to sit there and, try and hope I'm working on the double-up day. And if that day comes around, just sell the fuel and try and find like the 5 largest fuel purchases that I could that were not, if somebody's paying with a credit card or whatever the case might be, obviously this little trick was not going anywhere, but of a cash payment or of a prepaid payment. And I was making sure all these people were getting their real good discounts. Unfortunately, none of them actually knew or were actually aware, so I just, I didn't want their discount to go to waste. So I was finding myself, after coming to terms with this, for better or worse, to suddenly be in a much better position with my daily, weekly grocery purchases. As where before there were days where I was having to eat shriveled up hot dogs off a roller grill that should have been thrown into a garbage can, or very old, very crunchy, very stale baked goods. Suddenly I had days where I might be suddenly just having an additional $40 to $50 of fuel discounts just magically being given to me. And I don't know how that happened, but it was, unfortunately there was just no security camera, so I guess I just don't know really how that all came about. I'm sure that it was all sanctioned by, people would come in sometimes. I had people come in and buy me a snack every now and then. I had people who would win on a lottery ticket and give me $50, give me $100. It happened. So hey, who really knows exactly? Come on, who really knows how that was going on? But in any case, it was a pretty good arrangement, and and it pretty much, once I got to that point and I realized that, you know, I just kind of like was like, whatever, I'm good, I'm cool on this, and I pretty much just continued to do it on a weekly basis for pretty much until the last day that I worked at this store, which was about a solid year. So I never calculated myself between all the free snacks, chips, sandwiches, I mean, all old and gross or whatever, but still free, still nourishing enough to keep one living, and these special little discounts. I don't really know what that might have totaled, but it made the terrible, awful wage combined with the extremely extensive responsibilities much more worth it, I would say. Of course, you know, once again, I don't know if that happened, and plus everything in that story was just totally made up anyway. It was all just a lie. But I probably would not ever do that again. It was a tough time. It was tough times. It was desperate times called for desperate measures, as they say. And so, you know, I don't think there's really, at my age now and in my position in life, even if I'm not doing super great all over the place, I don't think there's really a need for that sort of situation to ever come into play again. I mean, just, I would have, you know, it was risky business, but hey, you know what? A man's got to do what he's got to do to survive. You know, some people are out there slanging the rock. Some people are out there, you know, getting Harvey Weinstein for their living. You know, I was just ringing up a couple fuel coupons, man. Paying the bills, paying the food bills. You got to do what you got to do. Speaking of Harvey Weinstein, I mentioned him the other day in the Californians Gone Wilder video. But honestly, man, now they have this thing with Ben Affleck saying, you know, oh my goodness, he was sexually harassive to this chick like fucking 15 years ago or 16 years ago, whatever the hell it was. And oh my god, Rose McGowan, she got suspended from Twitter because she posted somebody's docs. And everyone's like, oh my god, Twitter loves racist Nazi woman rapers, and they're trying to ban everybody who, oh my god, they're awful, they're horrible people. And here's my take on it. So obviously my initial take was, you know, I don't like anything to do with Hollywood. I hate Hollywood. Screw Hollywood. They suck. Everybody in Hollywood's a piece of garbage. You know, they're nothing but glorified peddlers of whatever the check signers want put into the public consciousness, whatever they want to dump into that well. You know, they're these tools of delivering this. Obviously, there's people who are in it for the film itself, and I gotta respect that. The true artists, of which there are some, and even some of those people are still kind of like not the best people. But there's, I mean, I don't want to generalize the whole sphere because you got a couple good dots here and there. But honestly, for the most part, if Hollywood's got to go down, you know, I'd rather just everything go with it. To be honest, you know, just drain that swamp. However, people have been having some spicy takes. They've been having some spicy takes, and they're saying, you know what, Weinstein, whatever, I don't even care about his name. He should not be. She should not be persecuted because you know, these women, they came and basically said, hey, I'll do whatever it takes to get on. I'll do whatever it takes to make this movie. I'll do whatever. Just give me that money. You know. So basically, I mean, these women are essentially glorified, idolized prostitutes of a degree, of a sort. And that by feeding into this narrative, you're basically putting forth that these women were, you know, helpless and oh my god, you know, when really they got plenty of resources, plenty of things in return for this. Whereas you have women who are out here, you know, actual women who are never going to be actresses, you know, that are poor and they go into adult films and things like that, where they're maybe making, you know, couple hundred bucks off this or that, and not being superstars, and you know, and they're in, you know, they're not getting anywhere near what these women who are now accusing Mr. Weinstein of his behaviors got. And I just gotta say, you know what? I do not buy into that. I mean, I understand where people are coming from when they say that. I do. I mean, I obviously do. People live lavish lives of luxury, and I'm sure they've had to do some really disgusting things to get it, but I mean, it's true, they do. There's people have had to do a lot worse for a lot less, I'm sure. So I understand where the angle is coming from, but I mean, honestly, you just can't. I'm not ever going to be able to excuse some slimy piece of garbage, you know, big, whatever. I don't care. Like, I don't like the guy. I don't like him at all. and it's not for me trying to defend anybody who he accused, because I think they're all pieces of garbage. But you can't say that, you know, oh, that this is gonna like suddenly. I mean, we've already been living in a fucking dystopia in regards to gynocentrism for longer than this. I can't. I mean, is it gonna maybe bolster this? I'm sure it'll have some effect, because I've been reading some of the most asinine, totally blind comments on this that I've ever seen in my life, to where, you know, nobody sees the puppet masters for what it is. You know what I mean? Nobody sees the string pullers for what it is. It's like, oh, Harvey Weinstein is a man, and men are rapists. All men are rapists, like Harvey Weinstein. Retweet if you want to ban all men, and like 1 million retweets. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh. You know, so people just, they want to interpret it how they want to interpret it, and they're already going to do this. I mean, fuck, we are already at a point where this shit doesn't even matter at all. I mean, we have, you know, what's his name, Brian, what's his face, the football player who was going to be a big star, and some chick didn't like it, so she's like, oh, he did all these horrible things to me, and he fucking goes, gets locked up, loses everything, and she's like, oh yeah, well, he didn't really do it. She gets nothing, no retaliation, you know, no justice for the acts she committed. You know, there was a guy, remember the story from years ago, I'll never forget it, about the guy who was an autistic boy who was friends with a female. You know, he was like, oh, he kind of had a crush on her, and they were like his neighbor or whatever, and she turns out to be a total whore. But she makes up some story because she basically was getting dogged out by, you know, 500 different football players, or whatever the case was, and she basically was in a jam. So she says, oh, it was him, it was that autistic boy and shit, and the dude was a hugless, kissless virgin until he got into prison and was brutally raped by other men in prison, and he was incarcerated. I believe it was either 4 or 7. I think he was sentenced for 7 years and served 4 years before she recanted and was like, oh yeah, I made all that up. We're already living in a place, you know, Harvey Weinstein is not going to be like, you know, maybe it's going to create some, you know, people going, about shit. It is by no means, in my opinion, a turning tide. We are already in a position where, you know, women are given this excessive power, when women are some of the most unstable people. You know, it's crazy to me how people just like, how this is totally just like, oh, don't talk about that, that's misogynist. When women hate other women more than any guy ever would, you know what I mean? But women are just, they're hysterical, they get catty and batty and da-da-da-da-da, and of course they're gonna, you know, petty, you know, behavior is a feminine trait. So if some girl is whatever and she wants to, like we're seeing with Kodak Black, you know, a lot of people are like, or you know, the whole his sexual assault thing is that he forcibly performed an oral sex act on her without her consent. And it's like, okay, so you mean to tell me, you know, you were okay, you know, you were okay getting into his hotel room or whatever, or his tour bus or wherever it was at, you're okay with getting totally naked. You know, Nelly was just, that was a false thing he was just accused with, whoever else, you know, all these false accusations, and he got into his tour bus or whatever, and then you got naked, but you just want to sit there, you know, you're just going to sit there and be like, oh, hey, what's up, yeah, we're just going to chill now, and then I'm just going to, you know, we're going to chill here, and then whatever. No, I'm sure he probably did. She probably wanted some money or some jewelry or a purse or whatever it was. He doesn't pay up, and she hits him with this. He could face 30 years, and I'm sure, you know. So I don't think Harvey Weinstein in that regard is a huge tide turner, but I think it should, I would like for it to bring into the public consciousness, into a discussion of, you know, how Hollywood, these people are sick people, they're disgusting people, and frankly, we need to stop. People need to stop idolizing these celebrities. I don't even understand why people do it, but it's sick, it's disgusting. These are some of the worst people that are around. Some of the most awful, psychotic, awful people, and nobody should ever be giving these people any sort of respect. Back in the ancient days, they were all treated as dirty, degenerate, drunken deviants, and they still are. That's how we should still see them. Alright, we'll see you guys on the next episode of Egg Wars.